And that final topic is our top 5 obscure games you've never heard of. Now, Kat just went through our top 10 list. If you're watching the videos, this is a separate video. So go and check out the other video that's part of this episode 89, where Kat goes over her top 10 favorite games. And I guess you could chime in. Did you make one of these at all? Did she?
No, I did not.
The obscure list, no. But one of her top games could easily be on the obscure list.
That's fair. That's fair.
Emu Ranchers.
Ranchers? Adventures?
Ranchers.
Ranchers.
Like farmer.
Oh, I could not hear it all, apparently.
All
right.
Farmer of emus.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't put a massive requirement on what we could put on this list, but the main thing would be if it had a really low amount of ratings on Board Game Geek. There's really not really a good way to.
I kind of skirted that a little bit.
Eric, 7 Wonders.
Eric, you skirt everyone we do. Every list.
That's true. That is true.
I skirted some a lot, but I've never heard of them outside of me owning it. So I would say that's pretty obscure.
It's like I own it. No one else has talked about it, but it has 8,000 ratings.
Well, 2,700, but yeah.
What? I try to pick stuff that was like 250 or less. Maybe 300.
Okay.
Well, anyway,
I was like, that game. There's a reason why some of these games only have low ratings. I was like, I ain't putting that on my list.
Well, if it's bad, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to pick obscure games you never heard of that are terrible. These are ones that we would probably say you would check out.
Yeah.
Or maybe even purchase.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they have to be decent.
Yeah.
Not our favorite games.
Yeah. They're not
right. Well, some of them. I like some of these.
They are good.
Yeah, they are good.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with George.
Okay. The first one on my list is called Festival of 1,000 Cats. And this is probably the most well-known of the games on my list. This is a trick-taking game, and you have cards that have cats on them, and the cats are fishing or cooking fish, doing things with fish. They're collecting fish symbols on the cards. So when you play them, they have a certain number of fish symbols. And some of them have bird symbols, which you don't want because the birds will take your fish. So when you win a trick, you get the number of fish that come with the trick. But also, there are cards that have sake on them. And you want to get sake. You want to get a certain amount of sake because it's also points. But if you become drunk, you spill all your fish. So if you get too much sake, you get no fish.
It makes sense.
And there's a number of clever things about the game. One of them being that low cards win part of the trick and high cards win the other part of the trick. So the lowest card will win the second lowest card, and the highest card will win the second highest card out of the trick. So each trick is really split in half.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and
that is one thing I like about Jiraku is that low cards are still good as high cards.
Yes,
so
definitely. And everyone has a chart that shows you all the cards in the game and what is on each of them. So you can count cards ahead. You can know what's going on. It's not a random trick taking. Oh, I just did this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like you really have to think about what you're doing. And when you play cards. The two that win the trick, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it's one of these. The two that win the trick, each card has a season on it. So the 2 seasons that win the trick as well are not available to be played in the next round.
Okay.
So then you have to play a card in another season, and that just gives it another level of thought. And, of course, there's entirely charming artwork of cats drinking sake and eating fish, and it's amazing.
Of course.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
actually remember playing this.
Festival of 1,000 Cats. Did you like this one?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Didn't make my 10 list, but...
Oh. Well, it doesn't make my top 10 either. But as an obscure game, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, what's your number 5?
All right. So number 5 for me is Sherlock Deluxe. It only has 45 ratings, but later I figured out, hey, it's from Sherlock, which has 557 ratings, which I'll still say is kind of obscure.
That still is kind of low.
Yeah, of course, if you don't have kids, it is more of a kids game. It's let's say deduction, kind of memory type of game. So you're putting out these cards face down, kind of like in a circle, And as you move this Sherlock dog around these cards, you guess what's. You're not guessing. Hopefully, you know what's underneath.
Right.
Of that certain card, and you're like, all right, that one is a shoe. You turn it over. If it's a shoe, it stays up. All the cards have a number and I believe a direction where you're going to go around this the cards, and then you're going to move this dog to that new card, and you're going to guess what that card is. And you keep on doing that until hopefully you get to a card that you land on a card that is face up. Once you do, you gain that as a point, and once you get like 6 points, then you win the game. But it's a great game to play with young kids as well. It's one of the early games that we played with Benny, and I think he was 4 years old when we started playing that with him.
Nice.
And
That's tremendous. Yeah.
it is it was kind of really surprising on how much of the stuff that he can remember. It was like, wow, it was surprising. Like, you remembered, like, I forgot how many cards there are out at any given time, say 9 cards, and he's able to remember like 5 or 6 of them.
Sometimes for pure memory, children are better.
Oh yeah, he was so good.
Sweet.
So anyway,
That's a good choice.
that's my number 5.
I like that one. That one.
I think I ended up picking it up on.
You did, because I recommended it. I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
did.
Yeah, you need to pick that up.
Oh,
Yeah,
now that
that's good.
Theron's 4, I'll try it out with him.
Yeah.
That was the first game that I've ever played with somebody who has an eidetic memory, and they just broke the game. They just knew everything all the time.
All the time, yeah.
I've never met anyone like that. It was astonishing.
Wow.
My number 5, I think this one has the most ratings out of all the games on my list, and it's like under 300. But it's Farlight. It's a game that
really?
I've been trying to get George to play.
Mhm.
I want to play it.
So this game, I think it might have been the first game published by Starlight Games, the same people that did Everdell. Where they used to be Game Salute, I believe, and then they moved on to this.
They used to be Game Salute.
Yeah. Or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the whole history. I'm gonna get
I was gonna say. I was like, they
Distributed
came
by
a long way.
maybe some of the people. Yeah. So I don't know why this game hasn't blown up a little bit more because of Everdell and just maybe people don't care about the publisher and what other games they have. I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of people who don't like Game Salute. Let's just say that.
So I don't know. Maybe, let's retract that. I don't know if that's true. This is what I remember, and I didn't look it up before the podcast.
Okay.
Either way, Farlight is a great game that it has a bidding mechanism. And if you were listening to the podcast before when we talked about Lockup, the game by Thunderworks Games in the role player universe, this is very similar in the kind of bidding mechanism that you're doing, where some of them are in this game. All your stuff is face down, and you're kind of like bluffing on where you're going to bid for, and you're bidding for these components to build a ship. And this ship is kind of put together similar to Galaxy Trucker.
Yeah, I was just looking for that.
I was like,
kind of gives you that vibe. It's
it
better.
does.
Better than
And
Galaxy
then-
Trucker.
Right. And then you
But
try to
agree.
go on these missions and get. It's not better than. I don't know about all of
I
that.
tricked you.
It is a more. But it's really fun. I really like it.
No, I do too.
Yeah, it's a really fun game, and I reviewed it. If you are interested, we talked about it on the podcast at one point, and I also have a Dice Tower review if you want to check it out. But I don't know. I expected this one to be less obscure.
I did too.
I would say out of all my games on my list, this is the one I really hope gets more popularity. But it's been out for like 2 years, and in the board gaming world, it's dead. So,
Yeah.
George, number
Yeah.
4.
My number 4 is like that too. I was shocked to see how few ratings there were for this one. And it's called Maya. This is an abstract puzzle game where you have 9 sets of, I guess, maybe 6 or 7 level high pyramids on or ziggurats on your board. So 3x3, and they're all different colors. So 9 different colors in the game. They're all mixed up. And then on your turn.
Are the colors definable?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, you can tell them apart for sure.
We've always made fun of monuments by Mayfair Games, and it has like 8 colors, and it's like 2 shades of each one.
No, this is very clearly different.
That's good.
No, they did a great job with it. So there are these plastic ziggurats, and they're all mixed up of different levels of color. And your job, what you're trying to do, is get a ziggurat of an entire color by moving the pieces around. When you move a piece, you have to move everything that's on top of it. So whatever level you pick up, you're picking up that whole chunk, and you're switching it with an adjacent, orthogonally adjacent one at the same level. And when you can make one all of the same color, then you get to put one of your pieces, white or black, on top of it, and that scores for you. But there's complicating factors. There's I think it's called a raven stand or something like that. I don't know. It's like a flag that moves around the board, and you move it yourself at the end of your turn. And if it's something adjacent to that, it can't be moved. So you're in control of that.
Yeah.
So you can sort of force your opponent to do certain things that would be more helpful to you maybe than it would to them. It is one of the thinkiest, most fun abstracts for 2 players, and it can be done for 4 players as well, where you're playing in teams. And I think it's tremendous, and only 44 people have rated it. It's a hidden gem.
Wow.
Absolute hidden gem. Maya.
Dope.
Like to
I'll
try
check
that
it
one
out.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten more into abstracts
Right.
with
Yeah.
Shobu.
So number 4 for me is it's part of a game called Cromagnon. I wouldn't consider it a good game maybe, but it is fun to play.
It is.
Yeah. So party game, it came out by Cosmos in 2007. Only has 143 ratings. So in this game, you are kind of moving through and evolving almost. So you start off with doing some miming and grunting. You go to modeling with clay and being able to move around that clay figure to try to have other people guess these words. Next part is the best part, is primitive language. You get like a cardboard cutouts of different words that you're able to say. It's pretty primitive. Have a lot of fun during that age. And then the last age to get to is charcoal drawing. So party game, but it was a blast to play.
So much fun.
Yeah.
I missed this one.
You
Sorry.
did.
Oh, no.
We have to bring it out again.
My number 4 is Decatur.
Decatur. You gotta yell it.
Decatur. There's a couple of things wrong with this game, but the game overall, I really think that if somebody else took this game, bought the rights to it or whatever, rethemed it,
Right.
straightened up the rules, got away from this 1970s way of rules writing where they name everything all these weird terms and say all this weird terminology. There's like an art to writing rule sets to board games now, and it's much different than 1975. And this game followed that through poorly. So has nothing to do with Decatur. The theme kind of sucks. I mean, it's just a standard like Axis and Allies type of game, basically risk type of game.
Mhm.
But what actually is happening is phenomenal.
The gameplay was actually pretty good.
The game is really good. I did review this on the Dice Tower. There's only 2 reviews on there. It's me and whatever his name was. Oh my gosh, I can't remember now. The dude who does all the ward games that used to be on the Dice Tower years ago. The chief.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there's only 2, and it's only got 19 ratings, which is probably their friends and family. But this game is still available. You can go. I think it's radiotaphere.com. If you just type in Decatur board game, you'll find it pretty easily, or go to its Board Game Geek thing. But it is like a Risk style dudes on the map type of thing. But the difference is each player has these like cards in front of them, and which areas or which continents of the world will score points at the end of that round. But you don't know what other people have. You just see a couple of face up in the middle. You see what you have. So it's like this poker-esque type of thing. And you're like, oh, I've got 1 and there's 2 out in the middle. So Asia is going to be like a hot zone, right? And then at the end of the round, you're like halfway through the round, everybody's fighting over Europe. And you're like, what? So you start fighting over Europe, and then you realize like more Europe cards are out there, but you didn't see any of them because the other players have it. So you have to kind of go with what everybody else is doing and where they're battling over. And then at the end of the round, you count up whoever has the most control points among all the different areas for each continent or zone or whatever. And depending on if it's first, second, third, or fourth place or whatever you get, it scores you differing amount of points. And what's neat about that is even if you fill up this like stronghold and you're like, I rule Europe because I just have all kinds of crap there. Well, like the next 3 rounds, it might be worth the least points. So now you got to spread your stuff out to go conquer other places that you are, thinking you're going to be worth more points. It's fascinating, dude. It is. I've always thought that this game had potential. It's done by people who, if you watch the video, there's a couple of things. One, they're making fun of the Decatur thing because it's like a party thing. If you say Decatur because the first player didn't move the round track, they get punished. And it's probably because somebody in their gaming group was like always bad at it and they just added that rule to be funny. Yeah. So stuff like that is there, but if it's cleaned up and it's rethemed and has new artwork and stuff, I really think this game could be a contender.
Oh yeah.
It is really, we should play it.
I would like to play it.
Yeah. I kept it around.
This is one I haven't played. Yeah.
And it is the very first game that I received as a review copy. So I'm not biased at all.
Special place.
No, Eric has actually played it. So he's not, he would disagree with me if it was terrible.
Yeah.
So
I would.
it's surprisingly good.
Cool.
Number 3.
And this one is one that Kat can speak to as well. My number 3 is called Isla Tetra, 1 and 2 actually, but they're both great. This is the one that we played where you're on an island and your plane has crashed, so it's lost, the board game, and there's flotsam and jetsam from the wreck that washes up on the beach. Just various things like a broken umbrella and like tin cans and just various crap. But each of them is represented as a Tetris sort of a figure. And you can take the blocks and actually use them to construct other things. So you take the shape and then you actually put them together with 3D blocks and then you use it to cover up other things that could be there's so many things you can do in the game. They're represented by grids, and once you've filled up the entire grid, then you get to do that thing. So if it is heal yourself from your injury, or if it's build a shelter or make a spear, whatever you're trying to do, that's how you do it. So you just
That's awesome.
You use a tin can and an umbrella to make a spear, whatever, and there's less thematically appropriate ones, but it just makes it funny.
Right.
And so the order in which you do things is very important because the other people on the island are also doing that. They want to get home as well. But while you're on the island, you can collect fish. You can write in your journal. You get points for doing all of this. Whoever gets the most points is going to win the game, but you also have to make it back. So I
love games like this. It's like a pressure luck.
You have to make it back first. It's kind of like that. Like when do you really make a push to leave the island, or when do you stay and get the points?
Wow.
But one of the funniest things to me about it is there's this track that's a time track. Time is passing while you're on the island. Time is going on. And so you also want to leave the island because as the time track moves down, things are happening. When you hit a certain point on the time track, they call off the search for the plane. They're not looking. They're not looking for you anymore. And then you're declared dead. Your dog dies, like just various things, like things happen while you're away from home. And by the very end, like your wife, gets remarried.
This is a depressing game.
It's hilarious though. Like that would really happen if you're gone for years and years.
It's like Castaway.
It's like Castaway, yeah.
Yeah, and it really is a pretty fun game.
I'll have to try that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are only 12 people that rated this one.
Wow.
It's basically a self-published game, and there's probably not too many of them out there. But Kat, you said you really liked this one.
I did. I enjoyed it. And I was a survivor.
Another game where she beat me.
Oh,
she
man.
likes it.
You should bring that tomorrow. That sounds good.
All right.
How many players?
Well, there's 2 versions. There's Isla Tetra 1, which is for 4 players, and Isla Tetra 2, which is for 2 players.
Oh.
And it refines a few things in the second version, but then they made it for 2. I don't know why. So I guess you could kind of put the 2 of them together, probably.
Play
House
6.
rule it, and yeah, well, at least 4 anyway. But what was it that you liked about it, Kat?
Well, I mean, obviously, because
you beat me.
Yeah.
All right. We'll just mention
But
that.
no, there was like you said, there was so many things that you could do with it, and you get to be creative of your own.
Nice.
You're not following someone else's
Someone's lead or
lead. Yeah. And it's kind of like your own game in a game. And I liked that aspect of it. I liked, it wasn't because George is more knowledgeable than me that he's automatically going to beat me and all this. No, it was like we each had our own strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses, and
Yeah.
we got to play on what we were able to do for ourselves. And
I do what I want. That's my flotsam.
I left him with Wilson.
Yeah, and it really does tell a story. I
It
like that
does,
about
and
it.
I love the storytelling aspect.
And it honestly is fun to take those little pieces and stick them together, and then make a shape and put it onto a thing to try to cover up the whole thing. It's just a fun process.
Yeah,
Nice.
Sweet.
I agree.
All right, number 3, but let's keep the time conscious.
Number 3 for me is a game called Powwow. It's a Ravensburger game. They came out with it 2006. It does have 639 ratings. It probably wouldn't be republished now, just because of the theme of it, I guess. But you're all Indians. You get a headband. Everybody gets a feather that they stick in their headband, and this feather has a number on it. It could be positive, negative. It could be ×2 or whatever else. Now you can see everybody else's feather, so you could kind of know whereabouts this number is going to be, and it's kind of a variation of liar's dice, where you're looking at everybody else's and you're going to come up with a number, and you don't want to go over that number. So it might start with me. I might say 10, and it goes to Tim. He either has to say, no, I don't. I think you overshot it, and then in that case, everybody puts down their feathers and you count it up. So like I said, it's kind of like liar's dice. You get like 3 chances of being called out. You get these little buzzer tokens. So it does have some player elimination, but as people get out of it, the game kind of wraps up faster anyway. So
It was pretty silly.
I
Yeah.
remember playing that, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
It's a
that
great
one.
game. I do like it too.
My number 3 is Akaya. I think it's pronounced Akai. I don't remember. We talked about it on one of the episodes, probably 12 or 13, very, very long time ago. 3 years ago, I believe. And this is a game that released at Essen. And I think it's maybe based on a book. I don't know. But this game has like 12 zones that you're going to roll dice and like try to take over the zones to do these actions. They resolve in a specific order, but you basically roll your dice and you're going to take turns dice placing, but your dice is how much influence you get over that spot. So if you put a die and I put a die, if mine's a 5 and yours a 3, I'm obviously winning. And I don't know. I really like the game. The artwork's kind of meh. A little provocative, I guess. But even
now
then,
I remember what you're talking about.
That's funny. That's what I remember about that game as well.
Yeah, that's the only thing I remember.
but it's like
Yeah.
not even like good like artwork of that type of stuff.
It's not
just-
terribly. It's just like, oh, nipples in a board game. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
why? I don't know. Whatever. But
You know why.
and maybe if you read the book or something that it was based off of,
It
it
would
might make more sense.
Mhm.
But overall, as the game, there's very little art, and then all the art's just kind of like doesn't make any sense together to me. I don't know, whatever. But the gameplay itself is actually really good. I really enjoyed it. It's like this dice placement area control game, but you're controlling areas specifically to do the abilities.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good.
Cool. My number.
It might not have good
Oh, yeah.
like a lot of ratings because I think it was only released in Essen and then only cool stuff and
Some people brought it over.
yeah, some people
for
brought it over, but like not a lot. So
Yeah, it's not. There's not
like
a lot of copies.
a
no.
shipment or something.
right.
My number 2 is this one is Dread House, and if you know the game Dread, which is a role-playing game where you use Jenga as the determiner of what happens,
Actually, yeah.
which is so.
I was gonna go in more on it, but
I do know that.
Yeah, Melissa's sister, and she's played it, and she likes it a lot.
I do too. That's my favorite role-playing game.
Okay.
Is Dread. Period.
What a weird game. It's awesome.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And so in this one, it's made into a board game form. So you have a group of teenagers going into a house, and every time they go into a room or explore a room or whatever, then they get to draw a card. They're looking for the sunrise card because that will be the end of the game, and you've made it through sunrise. You've spent the night in this spooky house, and it's a very kind of kid theme. But you can make it as adult as you like, and what happens is you get a scare when you go into a room, one of these cards, and then the person who draws it describes it to the other player, what it is that scares them, and you can make that as just gruesome as you like, So it's almost a story. It's a storytelling game as well, which is fun, And when someone gets scared, sometimes they get items, sometimes they get nice things. But if you get scared, you have to draw a certain number of pieces out of the Jenga tower. If it falls while you're doing that, then you have been killed and come back as a monster now. And your job when it's your turn is to scare one of the other kids. And then they have to draw from the Jenga tower. So that goes on. That process goes on until either the sunrise card comes out. If more than half of the kids who went into the house are alive, then they've won. But if more than half of them are dead, the monsters have won.
That sounds awesome.
So it's so fun. And this is a version of it that's just really for little kids. But when you sort of, act it out, role play it up, it's great for adults. And it's just so much fun. And it's only 3 people have ranked it on Board Game Geek.
That's a pretty cool theme.
Dread House.
We'll have to try that one out.
Yeah. And if you haven't tried Dread as a role-playing game, do it. Fantastic.
We're going to do it on the podcast. It won't be entertaining.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, number 2 for me is a game called Titan Tactics. It came out in 2013. It's a 2-player only game. It has 108 ratings. So in this game, you pick a faction, and within that faction, you're going to pick out 3 characters.
You did it, Eric. You got an obscure one.
There you go. So with the 3 characters, it's a like I said, 2-player skirmish game. You put it on this board, and your characters can never die. You are doing damage to each other, but there's a damage track that's kind of seesaws back and forth depending on how much damage you're going to do. If you get to the end of the track and you've done a lot more damage to your opponent than they've done to you, then you can win the game. But at the end of every round in which you activate all your characters, if that damage track is on your opponent's side, then you're going to get points. If you get a certain amount of points, then you can win that way as well. So in this game, there's only I forgot how many cards there are. There's colors basically. So you're grabbing these cards. There's red cards, blue cards, some other colors. Can't think of it right now. But so as an action, you can kind of
white and black.
That seems right.
Yeah.
You can boost
orange.
these actions. Yeah, using these cards, and everybody gets all your characters when you activate them get 2 actions, where you can push them for 1 more action or get some more cards.
And the colors are based on certain kinds of actions?
Those colors, depending on the character that you're using, they have these abilities. So it'll be like for every red card you use, do this specific type of action according to which character that you're activating at that time. So a character can only use certain color cards. So anyway, a really good little 2-player skirmish game, small box.
A little fiddly with the actual ability cards, or like just the color cards that you're swapping in and out, because it's not like you draw from a deck. You actually pick what you want.
Right. Oh. So you're like, you get something that lets you draw more cards. You pick the cards that you want to grab in your hand to get ready for, another character that's going to come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or that you're going to use.
I thought it was pretty good, though.
Yeah.
Say the name of the game again.
Titan Tactics.
Cool.
My number 2 is a game that was mass market, but for some reason no one cared. But maybe
hey, okay.
It's Fruit Ninja, the card game. So maybe a lot of people have played it, but they're just not gamers, so they've not went to Board Game Geek and rated it. There's only 100 ratings, basically. I have a review of it on the Dice Tower. You can check that out.
Yeah.
Self-serving episode here. But basically, it's a pressure luck game where you have a deck of cards. You cut the deck how you want, simulating cutting fruit. You flip it over, or you separate it, and the top card of the bottom half and the bottom card of the top half. You'll basically get 2 cards, and you choose which one of those you wanna take. And there's like a red, green, yellow difficulty, like stoplight difficulty. So obviously the reds have more bombs, but more fruit on each card and stuff. So it's really fun. I mean, it's only rated a 5.3, but I'm telling you, it's really, really fun.
Yeah, I remember playing it. It was actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
I would like to play it. I remember the review, and I was intrigued by it.
Yeah. It comes in the little box, just like all those other, like Scrabble game and the Monopoly
card game box.
What's that Monopoly game?
Monopoly Deal.
Yeah,
Yes.
Monopoly Deal. Like that tiny little box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk box.
Tuck
Okay.
box. Yeah.
Yeah, those are terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, but the box sucks. But the game is fun.
The game sounds good.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining.
Okay, so my honorable mention. This one has 158 people who rated it. So it's an honorable mention for me because it is a theme that I love tremendously, and it's Soccer City. This is the best soccer
game out there.
the best soccer board game out there.
Except for my game. Oh, keep going.
Oh,
You haven't played mine, have you?
is it Sabateo?
No. I mean, it's actually
It's
a game I was
unnamed.
designing.
Oh. Okay,
it's,
so
it's
no.
dexterity, and you can't. Well, no, I can't say it. I
That's
can't. No,
Sabateo?
you ain't taking my thoughts.
Okay, well anyway.
I'll tell you after the podcast. And you can sign the NDA.
Okay, fine.
No, I was kidding.
Dexterity soccer game though, Sabateo. Anyway, this one is not a dexterity soccer game. This one is a straight strategy game where you're playing soccer, and it has the best art because all the art is this sort of 19th century soccer player art, but it's cartoon style. So it's so it's very evocative, and yet it's very bright and colorful and fun. And the game itself plays a whole lot like soccer. There are a lot of soccer games who make that claim. This one is the best of the lot. When you play certain tactics and do certain things, it makes sense in terms of the game. And then when you are trying to take on a player, when you're trying to actually do things like that, you have a hand of cards and you play a card, and
Trying to juke them.
when you're trying to juke them, there's different ways to do it, and they're based on actual soccer moves, but they're named in the way that they would have been named, back in the day, or at least how they're referred to in like Latin American countries and things like that. So it's just more interesting. And then what happens is it's almost like a rock paper scissors kind of thing, where certain things are going to definitely beat certain things, or they're going to definitely be defeated by other things. So you have that mind game going on, and that makes it a little more simplistic than it really is. It really isn't rock paper scissors, because you sort of can figure out what your opponent may have had and how many times you may have to beat them on this round to get to where you can take a shot on goal. When you do take a shot on goal, the way that the goalies work is really interesting. It's just such an in-depth, enjoyable soccer game. And they did a Kickstarter for an expansion to it, and it didn't fund, and it broke my heart.
Oh,
Oh, man.
People seek this game out. If it comes back to Kickstarter again, oh my God, get it. It's already tremendous. To add more to it would just put it over the top.
Nice.
Soccer City, if you like that sport, this is your game.
Sweet. Eric, you got an honorable mention?
sure. Oh, I got one.
Magic the Gathering. No,
It was kind of weird. It is another mass market game, although it didn't have a lot of ratings on Board Game Geek, which was it was kind of odd. It was Nyctophobia, only has 164 ratings, which was rather low for
I'm actually surprised.
how many copies are out there. But anyway, in this game, you are it's one versus all. One person is playing the vampire. Other players have these glasses on, and they can't really see what's on the board, as everything is done by feel. You're trying to traverse around, communicate what you're doing, what you feel, and go help your friend and get back to the car.
Yep, you wear blackout glasses.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Although the glasses, you should replace those with sleep masks.
Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah, be comfy.
I got a couple of quick honorable mentions. One is Clout Fantasy.
Oh,
It does have 400 ratings, but it was pretty known at the time, and then it's dead. It's a collectible card game, sort of, but it uses poker chips. It's like playing Magic, but you're throwing chips on the table at each other. So
and I hate throwing stuff on a table, but this is a good game.
it is phenomenal. The only reason I'm putting it as an honorable mention is, one, it's one of those like dead card games type of thing, and it's always kind of rude to put those on the list because usually they're just kind of gone.
Mm-hmm.
But-
Hard to get.
Yeah, hard to get. This one's incredibly hard to find, except for the starters, but it's not really worth buying the starters and only playing with those. So if you happen to find booster boxes, then awesome. My second one is Jenga Gold, which basically is exactly like Jenga,
But so much better.
and it has no ratings, dude. But I mean, I guess mass market games are kind of like that because
right.
people buying them probably aren't board gamers anyway. But Jenga Go is basically Jenga, except there's stars on the bottom of some of the tiles. They're all gold blocks. And if somebody knocks over the tower, then everybody frantically starts looking at all the tiles and taking all the ones that have stars. And then whoever has the most stars wins. And the last one is Connexy, which we've talked about plenty of times. Yeah. It's a stacking game, word game, where you are stacking connecting letters, but you have to spell a word. Not in order, but this probably... Look, I don't ever have this many honorable mentions. This is my one time.
I love it.
Yeah.
Connexy, fantastic.
Connexy was the actual, or sorry, Clout Fantasy was my actual one, but Connexy would have been, I don't know, it's a cheesy honorable mention because it probably would have been in my top 10 if we did a top 10. Anyway.
Okay, so I have 8 honorable mentions. No, I'm just kidding. I do, but I won't. I'll just go straight to my number 1.
All right.
And this is, strangely enough, out of my list, this is probably the one that most people may have heard of, but not enough
that's
people.
That's kind of same for me, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
But not enough people have. And it only has 153 ratings on Board Game Geek. And the game is Desperados. Desperados by Matago. Let's see, what year is that one? Because there is another game called Desperados, and I don't want you to get the wrong one. This one is from 2012. Okay, this game is great. It's a game where you have, I don't know, probably 6 players is the best player count to play, and 5 of you are going to be desperados that are out in the Wild West trying to steal enough money, to earn enough money through illegal means to live a comfortable life. And the other player is going to be the sheriff trying to stop them. So every round on the map, the players that are going to be either cheating at poker games, robbing stagecoaches, or robbing the bank. And there's banks and stagecoaches that move around the map. Well, the banks don't move. The stagecoaches move and the banks are there. So you play cards. You play out all 5 cards as far as your movement to different cities. Face down. So you program what you're going to do. And if you're going to be robbing a place, then you have to put a disc on it. But the sheriff doesn't know the order that this is going to happen. He just knows, there could be a robbery there. Could be a bluff. Might not happen, right? But the sheriff is also saying where he's going to go in 5 different movements. And so he's trying to catch the people who are doing the various things. And everyone knows the value of each of these things on the board. So the sheriff could go after the higher value ones, to stop you from getting the money, because when you get $4,000, you win the game.
Okay.
And so you may want to go for big money, or maybe you just want to do like a few small jobs instead. And if there are more than one bad guy doing a thing at the time that the sheriff comes into town, he gets outnumbered. He doesn't arrest anybody. So you also want to work together, but you don't want to work together too much because you don't want the other people getting all your money either, or getting enough money to win. Yeah. So it's this crazy thing where you can't really communicate, but you're kind of like, you want to go there, just kind of like giving little signals, but you might be lying because you want the sheriff to think you're going there, and then he's going to bust this other guy.
That sounds pretty cool, actually.
It's so fun. It's so great. It's a really short, hour long game of sort of the reverse sort of game where instead of just one person being hiding and everyone chasing them, one person is looking for everybody else. That's great.
Nice.
Desperados. Matago.
Number 1 for me is this game called That's Life. Now, it does have a lot of ratings. It
like 1,000?
2,700.
How is this obscure?
It came out in 2005. So it came out 15 years ago.
That's true. I think it was really well known.
Maybe back in 2005. But I haven't seen anybody play it. No one talks about it.
There's a new version coming out this
great.
year.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
So Eric's going to replace his when God dies.
Yes. So anyway, so it is it's dated as of today's standards. So maybe if they republish it, they can spice it up a little bit. But it is a roll and move game. You have these pawns that you're moving around. And once you roll your dice, you get to choose one of these pawns to move. There are tiles that you're traversing to the finish line with all your pawns. And you're going to what you're trying to do is you're trying to get one of your pawns on a positive number. and be the last one to leave that positive number, because that once you take that tile, you get those points.
Yeah.
In the basic setup, you have all the positives out front, and then you have these 4-leaf clover tiles out. If you gain any of those, it makes any of one tile, negative tile, a positive tile, and then you have negative tiles at the end portion of the game. You also have these blockers that you can push out ahead to either block someone else or give you a space to land on, so then you can leave it, because if there's a blocker or anybody else, then you don't get those tiles. But if you haven't played it, you like some of these older games, this one's try out.
Yes.
I do really like this game, though.
I really like this game, too.
We played with Kat and George not that long ago, if you guys remember.
Yeah, how did you feel about that
remembered.
She probably doesn't remember. She's got the deer.
Yeah, there's been a lot of games.
She's got the deer in the headlights.
Okay. Just if I could chime in on that, because I know there's this new version coming out. I looked up what the differences are going to be with the new version.
Oh, okay.
And I think you could easily sort of, incorporate this in your old version. You have it. I'm planning to, for sure. What they're going to do is they're going to have a give or steal tile that is going to be placed every 8 tiles. And they recommend the random setup. Rather than having everything in the order like you described.
Right.
Just randomly do it. But then every 8 tiles a give or steal. And when you leave, or the last person to leave a give tile, then you have to give the top tile of your stack to another player.
Oh, which could be good or bad.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to stack your tiles,
as you get them.
As you get them, in the order that you get them. So that's a change. And then also, if you leave a steal one, you get to take the top tile of somebody's stack.
Okay.
The person who has the most tiles, I think, is how it works, but I can check on that. But then the other thing that is no. If you're the last person to leave a give tile, it flips, and now it's a steal tile.
Okay, so it stays on there.
Stays on there. Next person to leave, it flips, becomes a give tile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's different. But then the other thing, which is really clever, is those clover tiles.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you get a clover tile, they automatically reverse whatever is under them in your stack. So if it's positive, it becomes negative. If it's negative, it becomes positive.
Oh, wow.
So you have to be careful with the clovers.
Right.
That
changes a lot.
It changes a lot,
right.
but you could easily do that in the regular game, and I think that's really clever.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Yeah, good choice.
My number 1 we've talked about before and recently, but it is Final War.
Final War.
That literally has 24 ratings. It's, I believe, a CCG out of Australia that came to America for one Gen Con, and I got all kinds of stuff for it. It's a very terrible game, but it is so
the best,
fun.
Worst game.
It is the best worst game, dude. It is competitively, it is a disaster. Like the rarities and stuff, and the fact that certain cards are clearly, like, absolutely more beneficial to you than the other cards. The fact that there's a 3,000 gold and there's 1,000 golds. There's no restrictions to taking either. It's like, why would you ever have 1,000 ones? That kind of stuff. But the game is really fun, even though what you're doing is not balanced at all. I mean, there's so many negative things to say about it, but at the same time, it's so much fun. I don't know how, but it is a blast. So, I don't know.
Hidden gem.
If you ever have a chance to pick it up pretty cheap, I highly recommend it. It's really weird. The box it's mostly a one-on-one game, but it comes with 3 players worth of stuff in the in the base set. But super, super fun. It's
Great.
a CCG type of game. So